Hi, thanks for stopping by. I'm Jarrell from Sungrand, the developer of the Silver Falls games. Today, we're doing a character analysis on Gus, the protagonist of Gaiden Deathly Delusion Destroyers, and Holt, Analise, and Moss from Silver Falls 3 Down Stars. Now, if we open up our campfire menu here, we can see our party is set up. The first thing we'll do is have a look at our character stat spreads. Let's have a look at Gus first, and you can become acquainted with how this character works. As Gus is the protagonist, he's quite a balanced character, but he has an interesting skill here called Healthy Charge. Let's go ahead and click on that, and we'll see what the description is. Fill 30 charge when healed. This applies to any instance where he is healed, whether he heals himself through an item, or if a party member heals him using an item or an ability. So every time he recovers health, he gains 30 to his charge, which gives him potential access to his abilities or to boost his attack power even further if he's doing a basic attack. If you look at his equipment stat spread, we have shirt at 120% and jewelry at 120%. Gloves is 110%, which is pretty nice, and his eyewear and his vest will be a basic 100%. His jackets, his hat, and his shoes are not as good, but they're not quite that much of a penalty, so they're still alright to use those equipment. All around, basically any armor is going to be very good for Gus. You'll see that other characters don't do so well, as they have a more substantial penalty. Now, his stats are pretty good. He can take quite a few hits. He's got a fair amount of HP, and he can certainly deal a fair amount of damage, as he is a heavy melee weapon user, so generally those tend to do quite a fair bit of damage. Let's go ahead and have a look at his skills. So the skill that is his signature ability that he always has access to is called Sand Throw, and that has a pretty distant reach, and it reduces the enemy speed by 2 and it stuns by 3 seconds. So reducing the enemy speed applies to their movement speed and also the attack rate. So if you're dealing with bosses who can deal damage pretty quickly, it's good to use these abilities that reduce the enemy's speed. That will allow your characters to survive much longer because the boss will be attacking less often, and you can keep using this to reduce the enemy speed over and over again. Now, his soul ability, which he only has access to if the daily soul type matches his. Let's go ahead and have a look at his soul type real quick, which is strong. So today is artistic. Unfortunately, he doesn't have access to his soul ability, but that is Stony Gaze, which boosts his own technique and his own defense by 20%, which is pretty great. That means that his Sand Throw will do 20% more damage, and again, you can also repeat Stony Gaze, and you can keep improving the power of Sand Throw. Also, any of his oil abilities, like Oil Spray, will also be boosted from that as well. His ultimate ability, which you earn from defeating bosses, is Rocket Uppercut, which boosts his own technique and his charge speed by 40, which is pretty crazy, because your charge speed, if that recharge rate increases, it means that you'll be able to use all of your abilities more often. So if you can bust out a couple rocket uppercuts, you'll find that for the rest of the match you can just keep using more and more abilities more often. This is a great strategy to follow. Now, daily abilities are different for characters based on the day of the week. Let's have a quick look. So, on Sunday, we have Oil Spray, which stuns the enemies, and it also makes them take more damage from flame attacks, and it reduces the enemy's speed. You can see Gus has a theme here where he's able to slow the enemy right down, and it keeps party members safer. On Monday, what do we have? We have Team Oil Amplify, and that boosts the oil power by 30%, and that applies to the whole team. Now, unfortunately, he can't actually benefit from this because he doesn't have any oil abilities available to him at the same time, so really, his team benefits from this. On Tuesday, he has Spank, which reduces the enemy's defense by 30. If you're dealing with a boss that has high HP, then you will definitely want to bring Gus on Tuesdays. Certain bosses will be more defensive, and certain bosses will be more offensive. On Wednesday, we have Slapdown, which reduces the enemy power by 30%, and that's going to be great as, again, some bosses and some enemies will have more attacking power than others. We have Encourage, which boosts his allies' charge by 25, and that's very useful. That's a significant amount of charge. On Friday, this is a great boss slaying ability here, is Tear Off Shirt. So that boosts his own power by 70%, but it lowers his defense by 40. So there is a fair trade-off here, but the reward is pretty high. And on Saturday, he has Toughen Up, which boosts his own defense by 70%, and that is a significant boost. Well, there's Gus in a nutshell. He's a very balanced character, and he's pretty much great for any situation. You can see based on the day of the week, he's going to be a great character to deal with bosses. Now let's have a look at Holt from 3 Down Stars. Holt has an artistic soul type, which means today he will have access to his soul ability. We have Vigorous Camper. Let's see what this ability, or what this skill does. It carries +1 of each item. That's extremely useful, so when you equip Holt with an item, he's able to use it an extra time during battle. Holt is pretty balanced with equipment as well, but you can see that he has somewhat of a lower equipment percentage for gloves, eyewear, and jewelry. But for his shirts, his shoes are pretty standard, but his jacket and his vest are going to be pretty great. That's 120% on that. And hats, that's a nice little boost. The extra 10% can make a difference once your equipment gets higher in its stats. Holt uses a light melee, so in general they don't do that much damage, but they tend to have a decent amount of knockback or stun. Let's have a look at Holt's abilities. So we have Electro Shot, which stuns the enemy for 1 second, and it has a pretty fair range, which we'll see in battle pretty soon. Now, he does have access to Thunder Gun, which is a crowd control ability, and that is available because his soul type matches the daily soul type. His ultimate ability is Galaxy Kick, which boosts his own power and defense by 30. So every time he uses his ultimate ability, he actually gets tougher and stronger. This is a great ultimate ability to have. Now on Sunday we have Megaphone, which reaches a pretty wide area. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does stun the enemy for 5 seconds, which can give you just enough time in order to get on your heels or to add some more buffs or to plan out what you're going to do next with your party members. On Monday, we have Soccer Kick, which reduces the enemy's power by 20%, which is pretty good. Again, if you're dealing with bosses that can deal massive amounts of damage, that's a good ability to use. First Aid can restore some health to allies that are directly next to him. Let's see, we have Electro Amplify, which boosts electricity power by 30%. This is great because he can boost his own abilities with Electro Shot and Thunder Gun. So Wednesday, if you're using Holt for crowd control, or if you're dealing with enemies that are weak to electricity, Wednesday is going to be probably the best day for Holt. On Thursday, we have Inspire, which boosts his allies' charge by 45. That's a significant amount of charge to fill up. On Friday, we have Rock Throw, which reduces the enemy's speed by 3, and it reaches pretty far. And on Saturday, we have Team Training, which boosts the team technique by 20. So technique applies to anything that isn't a direct physical attack. So Electro Shot and Thunder Gun actually will benefit from team training. So both Saturday and Wednesday, Holt can actually. Oh no, these are quite different. You can see team training only applies to his teammates, not to himself. So they're quite different. So those don't actually apply to his own abilities. So Holt's a good all-rounder character as well. He's quite balanced, and you can see that with his ultimate ability, he's going to be a big damage dealer. But in terms of sort of defensive abilities or buffs, maybe that's not his strength. He's not a great support character in that respect, but he does have a little bit of first aid. Now, you can see that Holt's placement here is quite good. When he uses first aid, he's able to reach the spot on either side of him. If Holt was at either end, he would actually not be making a full use of his first aid ability. Let's go ahead and have a look at Analise here. Now, Analise has a bit lower power than the other characters, but her charge speed is significantly higher. If you have a look at her power, it says 6, and her charge speed is 14. If we compare that to Gus, charge speed is only 9, but his power is 19, so you can see the stats really let these characters play totally different roles during battle. On the plus side, Analise uses a pistol which allows her to protect her party members from much farther away. Now, let's see what her signature skill is. We'll go ahead and click on Smart Charge, and it fills 30 team charge on item use. Now, this is a pretty wild skill because every time she uses an item, it's also going to charge up the charge meters for the whole party. If we look at Annalise's items, she has 3 item slots. So it would actually be a very good idea to stock up on these cheap energy bars, which you can get for 15 moose tokens. And for me personally, I would make sure I'd give her a bunch of those. And maybe for her 3rd item, she can heal the party. So every time she uses any item, her party members will have their charge meter filled, no matter what item she's using. That's a great ability to have. Now her shirt is alright. She gets 110 on shoes, but her eyewear and her jewelry are where it's at. Especially that 130%, that's going to be a very nice boost. So if you have any jewelry, try to set that aside and keep that for Analise. She's not big on wearing jackets or vests. You can see she's got the 80% on that and 80% on the gloves. But if you have eyewear, or even hats will be a decent boost. 110 is quite nice, but 130 is going to be great. Especially jewelry tends to focus on boosting your charge speed, and you want Analise to be able to use her abilities as much as possible because her raw attacking power isn't great. But let's have a look at her abilities. So she has Flame Shot, which lets her hit enemies from a distance, which is quite useful. She has Flamethrower as a good crowd control ability, and her ultimate ability is Planetary Breath, which charges all of her allies' charge meters by 60, which is a very high amount, and that can often be enough to get her party members close to using their high-cost abilities as well. Or if her party members need to protect themselves from enemy attack, this is a great way to fill up their meters to help her party members protect themselves. On Sunday she got, she has Sweep Kick, which doesn't have any special traits to it, but it's able to reach the spots next to her. So that's a good offensive ability. On Monday she has Flame Amplify, which boosts the power of her flame abilities by 30%. This is great to have, so if you really need Analise on your team to deal to be the big damage dealer, Monday is probably going to be her best day since she has Flame Amplify there. On Tuesday she has Sprint, so she can boost her own charge speed by 3. And this is great, again, if you need to keep using Flamethrower for crowd control, or Flame Shot if you need to hit enemies from a distance. On Wednesday we have Team Bandage that applies to the whole team, and they recover a little bit of health. So she's not a powerful healer, but a great secondary or backup healer. On Thursday she has Sprint Rally, so she can actually boost her allies' charge speed so that her allies will also be able to get faster and faster. If you have slower characters on your team, for example, Bull Brandish or Maverick D. Moose, you'll find that they're very powerful characters, but they are not able to act that often because their charge speed is quite low. It's good to have Analise on your team for that because she can increase their charge speed, and suddenly those slower characters can get way more utility out of battle. On Friday she has a better first aid ability, and so she can restore some health to nearby allies, and that will have a stronger effect than the other first aid. And on Saturday she has Falling Star Kick, which boosts her own charge speed by 20%. Now this is a pretty wild ability because it's quite strong, and every time she uses it she gets faster and faster, so she can potentially use this ability repeatedly and get so fast that you can just start chucking out your flamethrowers and dealing massive crowd control. So you can see Analise is a good technical fighter and an excellent support character. She has some decent healing abilities, but you're going to see her ability to charge or to increase her teammate's speed is really where it's at. So Moss is a pretty tough character. He's got, let's compare his HP. He has 130 compared to Annalise's 80, and Holt has 120. We won't compare to Gus, he's already at level 2. So generally Moss has very good growth rate on his health. His power is going to be pretty good. And if we have a look at his skill here, Comeback Charge, his charge meter is plus 80 on Wake Up. So if Moss gets knocked out in battle, this skill will activate when he's revived, which will fill his charge meter almost to full. That's going to give him access to either one very powerful attack from his weapon that he's using, or let him use a skill. So that's already a great skill to have. So let's see, Shirt, he's 80% on that, which isn't great, but we're already looking at a great stat spread on his armor proficiency. His jacket, vest, and hat, nothing to write home about, but his shoes and his gloves are really where it's at. You got a 130%, just like how Analise has 130%. Having that on shoes and gloves is quite great. His eyewear is only 90%, and he's not a big fan of jewelry, so he does get a pretty big penalty on jewelry. So maybe don't give them to Moss. If you get jewelry, go ahead and bring those to Analise. Now let's have a look at Moss's abilities. First off, he always has access to Cryo Shot, which stuns the enemies for 4 seconds. Pretty nice. And he has Blizzard Gun, but again, if his soul type matches the daily soul type, and that will stun the enemy for 5 seconds. His ultimate ability is Comet Wrecker, which stuns the enemies for 5 seconds, and it also does significant damage. Now, on Sunday, he can actually self-heal a little bit with rest. That can be quite useful. On Monday, he has Stare Down, and it reaches pretty far, and let's see, it lowers the enemy's defense and power by 20%, which is very good, honestly. On Tuesday, he has Tough Rally, and that actually boosts his allies' defense by 40%. So if you are going up against a boss who can deal damage pretty quickly, this is a good way to deal with that. You can boost your allies' defense and help them survive that battle. On Wednesday, he has First Aid Lessons, which boosts his allies' healing power by 30%. Now, this is an excellent ability to have if you team that up with a character who has a healing ability as well. I'm not sure if Analise has a healing ability on Wednesday. We'll double check that and see what Analise has on Wednesday. Hey, look at that. It's almost as if these characters were designed to work well together. Analise has Team Bandage on Wednesday, so it says it recovers the team HP slightly, so it doesn't recover a whole lot of health, but if Moss and Analise are working together on Wednesday, Moss can actually increase Annalise's ability to heal the team, and so normally an ability that doesn't heal that much can actually start healing even more and more. 30% is a significant amount, and you can use this ability multiple times. Thursday, we have Slap Down, which reduces the enemy's power by 30. That's a little bit different from Stare Down, because Stare Down reaches a pretty far distance, and it also reduces the defense, but Slap Down has a lower cost, so you can use Slap Down more often. On Friday, we have Cryo Amplify, which boosts his own ice power by 30%. So if you need Moss to deal massive damage or for crowd control, Friday is going to be a good day for Moss. And on Saturday, we have Meteor Breaker, which reduces the enemy's defense by 30%, and it also does pretty significant amounts of damage. So you can see altogether, Moss has a Comet Wrecker and a Meteor Breaker. Moss is a pretty heavy hitter. So those are our character stats and our analysis. In general, Moss is going to be a pretty slow character who's going to need some help in order to access his really useful abilities. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to purchase a Moose Juice or Cheesy Moose Antlers. I'll just buy Cheesy Moose Antlers, and I will buy a 4-pack of Moose Juice. Now, the 4-pack of Moose Juice is going to be quite useful because Holt has that +1 on items, so I'll actually be able to use that item twice, and we'll see that active in battle. Now, let's go ahead and give Moss Cheesy Moose Antlers. So if you have a look at Moss's charge speed is 6. That means that he's not going to get to use his abilities very often, but if we give him Cheesy Moose Antlers, he can fill his own charge meter using the item. Let's go ahead and take on some enemies now. Let's try and win this vest. Let's see, enemy level 0. I'm sure we'll be just fine. Again, let's go ahead and click on our skill menus, and you can see these skills come up. Holt is the only one that has access to his soul ability. This enemy came up pretty quickly. Let's see, Analise is already taking damage, and she doesn't have access to crowd control, but Holt has access to his thunder gun. Let's chuck that out. Now, if I use this, you can see it filled up that green meter for his party members. Let's go ahead and use Cryo Shot. There we go. It's good to use your abilities, because if you use your basic attack, you will use all of your charge energy. I'll use Sand Throw. Now, I mistimed that. If I had waited just a little bit longer, I could have hit those enemies that were incoming as well. I'll go ahead and throw out this Thunder Gun again. And unfortunately, Analise doesn't have Flamethrower, but she does have her basic attack. So I'll go ahead and cancel that. And you can see Moss still has his cheesy moose antlers, and Moss will be a good character to protect his party members because he can reach across the entire field. Whereas Analise is pretty good for crowd control. She can hit multiple enemies pretty easily because of her attack range, whereas Holt only has a short-ranged attack along with Gus. Now, if you need to buy your party members time so that they can fill their charge meter a little bit, Sand Throw is excellent because it stuns the enemies. That enemy will be locked in place for a few seconds, and that could give you just enough time to build up the energy that you need for a stronger attack. And there we go. This is actually a pretty good team. I would personally rearrange that to put Gus in the middle, and I would probably put Analise on the top slot. And Wednesday, again, would be a very good day for this team if you're dealing with difficult battles, because, again, Moss can actually boost Analyse's healing abilities. And if you're in a boss fight that's going to be kind of dragging on a bit, and it's a test of endurance, then you need to have a good healing strategy. So I hope you had, I hope you enjoyed watching this video and having a look at these character analysis. And if you have any character requests for analysis, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you for enjoying the Silver Falls games, and we'll see you in another video very soon with more character analysis. Take care.